Naruto, ranking the Hokage. The Fire Shadow. If you watch Naruto, then you know what a Hokage is. If you don't, you're not a Naruto fan. Nor do you know anything about Naruto because it's like literally his whole goal. Anyway, Hokage is more than that one title that everyone yearns for. It's a legitimate title that's been held by others before and still is held. The holder of the title Hokage is the strongest and most revered shinobi of the village, but the question is, which of these Hokage were the strongest? Well, I plan to answer this question today. Which Hokage was the strongest? Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, before I begin, I'm going to mention that I plan to add Danzo. I know he was more of a candidate than an actual Hokage, but I'm going to count him too because his grotesque arm was cool in its own way. Anyway, first on the list, Lord First, Hashirama Senju. This guy isn't called the god of shinobi for nothing, and his title as Hokage is proof, but not just any Hokage, the first, the founder. Hashirama was born during the Warring States period. He fought against the Uchiha clan. When he wasn't fighting, he was playing with Madara, an Uchiha clan member. But due to them being friends, yet their clans at war, they decided not to share their clan names as it would make them enemies if they were of opposing clans, meaning one would have to die. They both dreamed of peace, but upon discovering the other's clan name, it became impossible. Hashirama sought to put aside their war, but Madara was not. Madara ended their friendship to make it easier to kill each other. Hashirama and Madara met in combat multiple times. Eventually, both became the heads of their respective clans, and Hashirama continued to search for peace. Eventually, Tobirama, you might know him as Lord Second, and is next on the list actually, killed Madara's brother Izuna after Madara was convinced to decline the offer for peace. Once more, Hashirama found himself facing off against Madara, and Madara found himself soundly defeated. Tobirama was one step away from killing Madara, but Hashirama stopped him, and after Madara stated it, Hashirama attempted to commit suicide to end hostilities between Senju and Uchiha. Seeing this, Madara relented and consented to peace. Together, the two formed what would come to be called the Hidden Leaf Village, a village where children would never die in battle. At least, that was the hope. Pretty sure they were still using children for dangerous missions during Naruto's era. In the end, under Tobirama's suggestion, the Hokage position was chosen democratically, and it was Hashirama who was elected, though part of me wonders what would have happened if Madara had become elected. After losing to Hashirama and knowing the second Hokage would inevitably be Tobirama, Madara left the village. He returned once more to destroy it, and this time, he brought a big nine-tailed present to his frenemy. After one final clash, Hashirama put an end, almost end if you count Izanagi, which robbed Madara of sight from one of his Sharingan. Now we move on to what he can do. Hashirama was both a Senju and a reincarnation of Asura, much like Naruto, and this meant he had impressive ki reserves, so much so that he even stated during the Fourth Shinobi World War that Naruto, using Kurama's chakra, was close to matching his own. This granted Hashirama near infinite stamina, which allowed him to fight for over 24 hours without fainting. He also was skilled enough to use jutsu with little to no hand sign. He also possessed great regenerative abilities and an indomitable will that made him truly a force to be reckoned with. Among his other abilities, he was a user of wood style, which even others in his clan descended directly from him couldn't do. He could create massive structures out of this mixture of earth and water chakra that were capable of matching Susanoo and even tailed beasts. He was also capable of using Sage Mode, which only boosted his already formidable power further to the point that his battle with Madara and the nine-tailed beast was able to carve a whole valley. This is something to consider. Lord Second, Tobirama Senju. During the Warring States period, he fought the Uchiha alongside his brother Hashirama and was far more ruthless than his brother. After this, when the village hidden in the leaves was founded, he put forward the idea of electing a Hokage democratically. While Hashirama was a hopeless optimist, his brother Tobirama was more of a realist. While Hashirama wished to give the position of Hokage to Madara, Tobirama wanted it to become democratic. He didn't believe it to be a good idea to give it over to Madara, as he was still wary of him. During the first Kage summit, when Hashirama wished to give away tailed beasts to the other nations, it was Tobirama who said they should pay for the tailed beasts. Once he became the Hokage, he began to foster a view of village first over the clan first view, which had been common up to that point. It was largely successful except for the Uchiha clan, which resented this idea. Tobirama created the military police force for the Uchiha clan to run, but they resented this as well. whatever the edgy clan they were. He did much to foster peace during his time, but sadly, the First Shinobi World War started. During this war, he and his team found themselves surrounded by Kinkaku force of the village hidden in the clouds. This was where Tobirama met his end, but before his death, he passed his title to his protege, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Now, his abilities. Tobirama, during his time as Hokage, was considered unmatched and was known to be the fastest shinobi alive. He was the creator of such moves such as the Flying Thunder God Jutsu as well as the Impure Reincarnation Jutsu. The guy legit learned how to bring people back to life. Ironically, this technique was one that was later used on him. He also created the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which is later used by the likes of Lord Seventh. He was capable of completing complex jutsu with only one hand sign. He also was an astoundingly good sensor, having the ability to not only sense people countries away, but even tell their lineage merely from sensing their chakra. He was a master of water style, which made him terrifying on the battlefield. Lord Third, Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was born to the, you guessed it, Sarutobi clan, and was among the first generation of shinobi to be trained in Konoha. He was a close friend of Danzo Shimura, who we're going to title Lord 5.5 for this video, and was put on a team with the likes of Homura Mitokado and Koharu Utatane. They were under the direct command of Lord 2nd Tobirama Senju, and were known as Team Tobirama. Hiruzen was quite the prodigy in shinobi skills to the point that Danzo grew jealous. Hiruzen was given the title of third Hokage during the First Shinobi World War and allowed Danzo charge of the even more ruthless version of Anbu known as Root. Hiruzen married Biwako, who eventually gave birth to Asuma. Sarutobi led his own team consisting of Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade, who would later become known as the legendary Sannin. Hiruzen led the Hidden Leaf during the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars, where he ended the third by signing a peace treaty with village hidden in the stones, despite the losses Konoha had taken. This caused an uproar in the village, which forced Hiruzen into retirement. He had hoped that Orochimaru might replace him, as he felt Orochimaru was a kindred spirit, but Orochimaru refused. He tried to give the position to Jiraiya, but didn't think he was responsible enough. In the end, he chose Minato Namikage, who had proven himself in the war. However, after the death of Minato Namikage in the Nine-Tailed Fox's attack, Sarutobi came out of retirement to lead the village. During this time, he fulfilled Minato's wishes by watching over a young Naruto. Although, he didn't watch him good enough, it seems. Abilities. Hiruzen was known as a god of shinobi much like Hashirama Senju, and his talent earned him his position from a young age. Despite growing weaker in his old age, he managed to hold his own against Orochimaru and the reincarnated bodies of the first and second Hokage. While he did die in this battle, it was only after emulating Minato Namikaze and using the Reaper Death Seal to rob Orochimaru of proper use of his arms. He was stated to have incredible chakra prowess, but his old age severely limited this to the point that it was risky to even split his chakra among more than a couple shadow clones. He was renowned as the professor due to his versatility in jutsu. He could understand and use jutsu unlike many people in history. His observational abilities were incredible enough that he could understand a brand new jutsu just by seeing the hand seals that were weaved by his opponents. He was known to be ready for about any situation. It would be likely he would be prepared for this situation too. He was also very well trained in all basic styles as well as yin and yang release. He was very good at using shuriken as well as sealing techniques, worthy of his title. Lord 4th, Minato Namikaze. The father of the titular protagonist, Minato was not without his own abilities. He was trained by Jiraiya and was an incredible warrior. He rescued Kushina from the village hidden in the clouds as agents. This feat just so happened to steal the heart of Kushina Uzumaki, and the two would later end up married. He eventually created a team of 3 called Team Minato. This team consisted of Rin Nohara, Obito Uchiha, and Kakashi Hatake. When Kakashi was still dealing with the death of his father, Hiruzen assigned Minato to helping him overcome this bitterness and understand the human aspect of being a shinobi. To help with team building, Minato gave his students a bell test. During the Third Shinobi World War, Minato was a beast to the fact that during his time as Hokage, people feared him and hated him for it. When he became the 4th Hokage, he was tasked to help Kakashi Hatake, who had fallen into an even deeper hole after the deaths of Rin and Obito. He gave Kakashi the role of guarding Kushina during childbirth to help restore his value of life. Minato was there when Naruto was born, but a masked man named not Obito held the baby hostage and used it as leverage to get to Kushina. He released the Nine Tails and tried to use it to eradicate the village, and in the end, Minato and Kushina sacrificed their lives to save their child and the village by sealing half of Kurama into Naruto, with Minato maintaining the other half and taking it with him to his Shinigami grave. Abilities. He was one of the strongest shinobi ever. I'm not saying that just because he's cool and stuff. He quickly figured out how to counter Obito's Kamui and slapped him with the Rasengan. Oh, by the way, did I mention he invented the Rasengan? He was a master of the Flying Raijin Jutsu, which he taught to the Hokage guard once he was in office. He was fast as hell too. It's no joke that he was called the Yellow Flash of the Leaf. Yellow because of his hair and Flash because he was so fast. He prioritized moving quickly and striking just as quickly in the deadly manner. He was able to summon Gamabunta and use him with no fuss. He was skilled in barrier-type jutsu and was even a good sensor. Not to the level of Tobirama, but still a good sensor nonetheless. He had incredible chakra control, which is required for the Rasengan, and was proficient in 3 of the 5 main nature releases, as well as yin and yang release. He was proficient in sealing jutsu, which I suppose is only natural when you're married to an Uzumaki. He also was notable for his use of shuriken jutsu, of which he used a custom-made kunai that he tended to mark for use with his flying thunder god technique. He also was capable of using Sage Mode just like Naruto and Hashirama. Is it too early to call a winner? Too early? Yeah, it's too early. Lord Fifth, aka Tsunade, the granddaughter of the first Hokage and one of the legendary Sannin. That should be enough for us to tell how strong Tsunade is, but for the sake of the viewer, I shall continue. You're welcome. A woman full of vice, she was a drinker and a gambler much like her grandfather before. He doted on her and she even became known as Princess due to her connection with Hashirama Senju. After the death of her grandfather, she inherited his necklace, which she would later give to Naruto. She joined the academy and eventually was assigned to Team Hiruzen alongside definitely pervy not yet Seiji, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru. She was known to have a flat chest when she was younger, to which Pervy made fun of when she made fun of his failure during their team's bell test. Despite this comment, Jiraiya did have a crush on her, which only increased along with her bust size through the years. She had a younger brother named Naoki who dreamed of being Hokage just like Granddad. On his 12th birthday, she gave him their grandfather's necklace to help bring him good luck to achieving his dream. It didn't work out so well as he died the next day as a casualty of the Second World War. Hashirama didn't do too well keeping children out of war, did he? After this, she campaigned to get medical nin added to all squads to help stop deaths like her brother, which Hiruzen agreed to. It was too demanding in the war though, and would require more resources than they could spare. A shinobi named Don Kato agreed with her and confided in her that he would also wish to become Hokage one day. A very common dream, I guess. She gave him a kiss on the forehead and then gifted the Hokage necklace to him. And yeah, he died too. I'm kind of seeing a recurring theme here, you know? She took on Dan's niece, Shizune, as an apprentice and leave the village and her life as a shinobi behind. Eventually, though, she became Hokage after Naruto met her. She gave him the necklace and he did not die, so I guess it's a sign, right? Abilities. Tsunade was a skilled taijutsu user and medical nin. She was a legend before she even became a Kage. She did have a fear of blood, which I guess is only right. It's kind of weird for a medical nin, but again, she lost her love Dan via blood loss, so it's understandable. Nonetheless, she doesn't let this get in the way. In battle, she was even considered by Madara to be worthy of the title Kage. As both a descendant of the Uzumaki and Senju clans, her chakra levels were off the charts. She was so strong she managed to fight non-stop for 12 hours straight and even survived dying. Seriously, she got cut in half and walked it off. She has the capacity to heal over 1,000 shinobi at once, and with the strength of 100 seal located on her forehead, she can increase her power by, well, 100 times. She's naturally strong, able to lift Gababunta's sword, and was even noted to be incredibly strong when even only a few years old. She could even split the ground with her finger. She once even broke 6 of Jiraiya's ribs, both of his arms, and ruptured many of his freaking organs, and could even break through a Susanoo in absolute defense with just a few strikes. She even has access to a technique known as Creation Rebirth, which is essentially canned immortality. She's a great summoner, capable of summoning a giant slug named Katsuyu. Katsuyu can divide into multiple cells, which Tsunade can use to communicate and remotely heal allies from a distance. She's proficient in using fire, water, earth, and lightning release, missing out on only wind. She's also proficient with both yin and yang release. She isn't seen using any of these releases, however, in the series, but has been shown to use a technique that scrambles signals from the brain to the body known as body pathway derangement. She also is very proficient in the transformation technique, which allows her to appear in her 20s despite being in her 50s. The transformation is resilient as it never seems to run out, even when unconscious or injured, and only ends when she runs out of chakra to use. She's rightly claimed to be the best medical nin in the world, perhaps history, being able to detect any illness just by looking at someone. She healed the psychological damage caused by the Tsukuyomi and even healed Rock Lee's spine, even after he was deemed a lost cause. Her knowledge of medicine is unparalleled as she's able to create poisons, antidotes, and even learned how to make synthetic limbs from the Zetsu that was recovered after the 4th Shinobi World War. She is truly a versatile and powerful Kage worthy of her spot. Lord 5th.5 Danzo Shimura, aka the Darkness of the Shinobi. Now there's a nickname for you. Danzo Shimura of the Shimura clan was among the first few 100 shinobi to graduate from the academy and was rivals with Hiruzen Sarutobi, Lord 3rd. He fought alongside Team Tobirama during the First Shinobi World War, where he witnessed Tobirama passing his title to Hiruzen. During the battle against the Kinkaku squad, it became apparent that not everyone would walk out alive, and for most to escape, one would need to act as a distraction and die. Danzo wished to, but found himself too afraid while Hiruzen offered himself up immediately. In the end, it was Tobirama who volunteered himself. Danzo beat himself up over his cowardice and lashed out at Hiruzen for volunteering before he could. While Tobirama distracted the enemy, his squad escaped. After Hiruzen became Hokage, he appointed Danzo as the head of Root. Danzo never did forget his dream of becoming Hokage, however. During the Third Shinobi World War, Danzo sent some of his assets to the village hidden in the rain, where he hoped to help Hanzo eradicate a fledgling group known as the Akatsuki. He had hoped that this would help him secure a spot as Hokage, however the rage-boosted Nagato eradicated them all with the Ghetto statue. During this time, Danzo played both sides of the field, both manipulating Hanzo as well as the Akatsuki in an effort to strengthen the Leaf. Danzo also worked with Orochimaru and together recruited former Anbu member Nono, who had been working at an orphanage, and also recruited a young man named Kabuto Yakushi as operatives. When they began to become too dangerous to leave alive, Danzo manipulated Kabuto and Nono into killing each other, with Orochimaru being sent to clean up whoever was left over. Instead, Orochimaru recruited the young man without Danzo's knowledge. Orochimaru also helped Danzo replace his arm with one from Shin Uchiha and even infused it with the DNA of Hashirama Senju. When Hiruzen sought to end the Third Shinobi World War with a peace treaty, Danzo was among those who voiced their disdain, which was instrumental in the fall of the third Hokage from grace and the creation of the fourth, Minato Namikage. When the fourth lost his life in the battle against the Ninetales, Danzo immediately suspected the Uchiha, and when Lord Third returned from retirement, Danzo was quite upset. He recruited Kakashi Hatake to spy on the Third and even began to contemplate and plan an assassination, which Kakashi snitched to the Third about. This was treasonous and worthy of execution, but Hiruzen spared Danzo and kept it all secret so long as Danzo dedicated his life to protecting the village. Danzo then mentioned that such mercy and kindness would one day be Hiruzen's downfall, and the prophecy would prove to be true, as Hiruzen's mercy with Orochimaru is what ultimately led to the Konoha Crush, where Hiruzen perished. Eventually, Orochimaru's sinister actions would come to light, and Danzo would betray Orochimaru to protect himself. However, fearing his Sharingan might go blind from overuse, Danzo attempted to take Kakashi's gifted Sharingan for his own, but his subordinate, Kinoe, you would know him better as Yamato, refused to complete the mission. The Hidden Leaf managed to form an alliance with the Land of Wood, in which they meant to exchange secret scrolls as a sign of trust. He feared that the Land of Wood would betray him, and so he sent Kakashi and the newly recruited Itachi Uchiha as a two-man team to deal with the Wood Nin if things turned sour. About 2 years later, there were rumors of a coup planned by the Uchiha clan. A man named Shisui Uchiha said that he planned to cast Kotoa Matsukami on the council of the clan to put the idea to rest, but Danzo instead stole Shisui's eye, which resulted in the latter's suicide. He then met with Itachi and formed a plan to slaughter the entire clan, which came to fruition with the exception of Sasuke and Itachi himself. He then threw Itachi under the bus by stating it was Itachi alone who did it. Doesn't need much saying. Guy was kind of a douche. Abilities. Danzo wasn't a slouch, but his old age did drag him down, not too unlike Hiruzen. However, Danzo managed to keep up with many other powerful shinobi, and his use of genjutsu was a high quality, both in creating and dispelling genjutsu. Danzo was also well versed in sealing jutsu and summoning jutsu. He could place seals on the tongues of root members to keep them from speaking certain things, and could use a seal known as the reverse four symbol sealing technique, which he could use at death to seal any threats within his own body. He was proficient in wind, earth, water, and fire release, as well as yin and yang release. He was very proficient in wind release especially, and could use vacuum-like attacks that could carve you up like a turkey. He also could use wood release due to possessing Hashirama Senju's cells, though this was tougher on his body. He also possessed multiple Sharingan, one of which being Shisui's Sharingan, which would allow him to cast a genjutsu so subtle that people would believe that thoughts and actions they were taking were of their own volition. He further had access to the Izanagi technique, which in exchange for the sight and use of the Sharingan, could blur the line between genjutsu and reality, which he could use to escape an undesired outcome, though this had a time limit to it, and Izanagi could be used without any effect due to time constraints. If one activated Izanagi and a certain amount of time passed without it being used, the eye would still go blind, so it wasn't a perfect defense, as you could merely pull a Sasuke, outweight the Izanagi, and then go for a fatal blow when all Sharingan were depleted. However, the chances of you getting to this point relies heavily upon circumstances and possibilities in the situation, as Sasuke would have been dead if Danzo had been at full power and Kaden had not been there. Lord 6th, Kakashi Hatake, the Copy Ninja. He's a legend in his own right. He was raised basically by a single father, as his mother died when he was very young. However, his father had failed a large mission due to choosing his friends over the mission, which resulted in heavy losses for Konoha. Kakashi's father later committed suicide, leaving Kakashi as an orphan. Kakashi, however, still managed to get top marks in the academy and was very popular among his peers, even gaining a friend and rival in a student named Might Guy. Kakashi was a prodigy and was considered the best of his generation. He managed to pass Minato's bell test. This test was meant to foster teamwork, however Kakashi managed to take the bells by using Obito and Rin to handicap Minato, as Minato naturally went easier on those two than the prodigy himself. Minato still passed them as technically they had used teamwork, even if Kakashi had instead used his team as opposed to working with them. During the Third Shinobi World War, Kakashi had already become a Jonin, and he was given command when Minato felt he needed to help elsewhere in the war. During the mission to destroy Kanabi Bridge, Kakashi learned what it was to be a team when Rin was captured. He had said that shinobi who abandon the mission for personal feelings are scum. This vision was derived from the bitterness over the fate of his father. However, Obito defied Kakashi's orders to leave her behind, stating that if a shinobi that abandoned their mission for their teammates were scum, then a shinobi who abandoned their friends were worse than scum. Kakashi took this to heart and later attempted to help Obito rescue Rin. In this attempt, he lost an eye and Obito managed to awaken his own Sharingan. They managed to save Rin, but in the effort, the cave began to collapse. Kakashi would have died, but Obito pushed him out of the way and saved him at the cost of his own life. Obito gave one of his Sharingan to Kakashi to replace Kakashi's lost eye as a birthday gift before they were forced to leave him behind. This death had an impact on Kakashi that would change his view for the rest of his life. During a later mission, his teammate, Rin Nohara, was kidnapped by the village hidden in the mist and became the Jinchuriki of the Three Tails. The idea was that she would lose control of the tailed beast when inside of Konoha and destroy it from within. But she didn't want that. And when Mist Ninja caught up to her to retrieve her, finger quotes, Kakashi fought them off with his lightning cutter, which she jumped in the way of to end her own life. The pain of this loss caused Kakashi's Sharingan to evolve into a Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi, after this, fell into a deep depression which Minato had hoped he could pull him out of by assigning him to the Anbu. Kakashi quickly ended up leader of Team Ro. His success was due to his ruthlessness, which was an obvious sign that he had not moved on beyond Rin's death. And so Minato decided to make him the guard of his wife and unborn child in hopes it might give him a better view of life. When the Nine Tails attacked, Kakashi was held back from the fight due to his age, and the attack cost Minato and Kushina their lives. Kakashi later was invited to join Root, where he had many exploits, including his team up with Itachi as detailed earlier. Much like detailed earlier, Danzo wanted to steal his Sharingan, and used Kinoe, Yamato, to do it, who refused. Kakashi also informed Lord Third of the assassination plot considered by Danzo. Kakashi was instrumental in discovering the works of Orochimaru and caused the Sannin to flee the village. He continued to track Orochimaru for years and considered to work as leader of Team Ro alongside Itachi. But when Itachi slaughtered the Uchiha clan, he was removed from service in the Anbu, as Hiruzen recognized Kakashi's kind heart and said such kind hearts did not need to be in the Anbu. After this, he was placed in charge of several teams, none of which he accepted as they couldn't pass his bell test. This was until Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura showed up. Abilities. Kakashi is one of the strongest ninja his clan had ever produced, and was strong enough that he was considered to rival an entire nation. He was acknowledged by the likes of even Pain as a true threat. He was proficient with his Sharingan, but even stronger without it due to no longer having to passively extend his chakra to maintain it. Kakashi was said by Naruto to be smarter than Shikamaru, have better senses than Kiba, better at Genjutsu than Sasuke, and stronger in Taijutsu than Rock Lee. He also made a fantastic teacher due to his incredible experience as a shinobi. Kakashi's chakra reserves were nothing to write home about, but his control made it so that he didn't need to have large reserves, as he can conserve what he had by wasting no more than needed when performing a technique. He was said to be quick and could even open at least one of the 8 gates. He has an incredible amount of ninjutsu, which he developed over the years with his Sharingan's ability to see movement so well. He was said to have copied over 1,000 techniques with his Sharingan, which is how he earned the title of Copy Ninja. He also has a pack of dogs he uses as summons which help him track and attack. He can use all 5 basic nature transformations as well as yin and yang release, with lightning style being his forte. He can use water style without any nearby sources of water, and can use earth style with such proficiency that he can even tunnel underground at high speeds. He also possesses a Sharingan which allows for Genjutsu. He can further evolve his Sharingan into a Mangekyo Sharingan which allows him to make use of Kamui, which allows him to send things to other dimensions, and was close to being able to personally kill the Gedo statue single-handedly by teleporting its head away. With his dual Mangekyo Sharingan, he has access to a complete Susanoo as well. Lord 7th, Naruto Uzumaki. Normally, I would give a short spiel about his history, but I don't need to. If you wish to know about Naruto's history, then you should try this cool anime. It's called Naruto, and it has a sequel called Shippuden and Boruto. Sorry, we all know who Naruto is, so let's just move on. Honestly, if you want to know the life of Naruto, we have so many videos about Naruto. Go watch them. Abilities. As both an Uzumaki and a reincarnation of Ashura, this also makes him the reincarnation of Hashirama Senju, he has incredible chakra levels, and this is only bolstered by the fact that he's a Jinchuriki of perhaps the strongest tailed beast that isn't the Ten Tails. His chakra is so high that even as a teenager, he was known to have almost as much chakra as Hashirama Senju himself. This only grows as he ages. Beyond his physical strength, he has a strong personality which tends to make friend out of foe and a raw faith in himself and others that can change the world. And has. While not notably intelligent, his instincts allow him to formulate incredible plans that even he doesn't understand sometimes. He managed to learn to control his chakra better, as was required to learn the Rasengan. This control eventually allowed him to spread his chakra to others. He also knows how to counter genjutsu, though this is limited and not anywhere near the level of Sakura. His chakra reserves are so large that in adulthood, he can destroy high-level barriers just by releasing a burst of it. Despite being a close-range fighter, he was clumsy when it came to taijutsu, which caused him to require great improvisation to overcome some obstacles, to the point he could surprise even Kiba and overcome Neji. He was well known for using shadow clones. While originally his worst technique, he managed to learn it at an incredible level from stealing the scrolls of seals. He can make them at almost excessive amounts, which can often allow him to overwhelm most of his enemies. And this only got worse for his opponents as his taijutsu grew better through the years, up to his position as Hokage. After losing his arm in his final battle with Sasuke, he ended up getting an arm made from Hashirama Senju's cells, and it was further modified with ninja tools which could allow him to absorb and nullify enemy chakra-based attacks. He also has various forms he achieved via his Jinchuriki side, various chakra cloaks that he managed to master. And upon befriending Kurama, he managed to achieve and master the Kurama Chakra Cloak. Upon getting the chakra of the Sage of Six Paths, he managed to achieve a stronger transformation known as Six Paths Sage Mode, which also came with truth-seeking balls. Perhaps his greatest feat in this form is his ability to casually deflect an attack that shattered the moon he fought on. Beyond that, he had access to Baryon Mode, which is a high-risk, high-reward form that eventually killed off Kurama, but managed to allow him to defeat Ishiki Otsutsuki. He can summon toads, and he can use various ninjutsu, including sealing techniques. He managed to incorporate his own chakra nature into his Rasengan, which allowed him to create the Rasen Shuriken. As his connection with the other tailed beasts increased, he managed to incorporate other natures into his Rasen Shuriken. And while not stated, due to having an arm of Hashirama Senju's cells, Naruto could possibly use wood release now. Naruto is not one to be messed with. So now, the moment of truth. Who is strongest among the Hokage? I'll give you my own opinion based on what I personally believe, and if you disagree with my opinion, that is 100% okay, and in fact, I would love for you to drop your own opinion in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's rank. Number 8, Hiruzen Sarutobi. I know it's sad to place him here, but in the end, number 8 needs to be filled, and while Sarutobi was strong, he eventually grew very weak, to the point Orochimaru managed to get the better of him. I place Hiruzen at the bottom for this one. Number 7, Danzo Shimura. Danzo was cool, and he was very strong, but his biggest selling point were the Sharingan he had embedded in his arm. He essentially was playing the game with cheat codes. This isn't really something to detract from, as a technique is a technique, and it's a cool one to be sure. But the fact is, he's not very notable for anything except that ability. Just as Sasuke wouldn't have survived without Karen, Danzo wouldn't have survived without Izanagi. Number 6, Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi is incredibly strong, and with his dual Mangekyou Sharingan, has access to the complete Susanoo. He has Kamui and various other techniques, but I don't think this is enough to put him too much higher on the list. Number 5, Tsunade. Tsunade is truly a very strong woman with incredible physical prowess and healing jutsu. However, besides brute force and medical ninjutsu, she doesn't have much going on technically speaking. Not to say medical jutsu isn't strong, much like medicine, can heal or kill very quickly, but she lacks range. Not a bad thing, as her chakra reserves and the creation rebirth, she would almost never tire and could take incredible damage. However, I doubt this would allow her to surpass others beyond her. Number 4, Minato Namikage. I so wanted him on top, but sadly his abilities only gets him to the 4th spot, which is ironic to his position as the 4th Hokage. He was fast and had a lot of techniques, including the flying Raijin Jutsu. His intelligence was also able to allow him to understand Kamui incredibly fast and found a way to circumvent its power. Number 3, Tobirama Senju. Tobirama comes above Minato, mostly because the jutsu we consider Minato and Naruto's specialty were created by him. Tobirama created the multi-shadow clone jutsu and the flying Raijin jutsu, but beyond that, he created the imperfect world reincarnation jutsu. The dude legit learned how to bring a person back to life, and if that's not worthy of this spot on the list, then what is? Number 2, Hashirama Senju. I bet you expected him to be number 1 on the list, didn't you? Well, he was incredibly strong and had various powers, but let's be honest, the obvious number 1, Naruto, was close to surpassing Prime Hashirama when he was merely in his teens, and Naruto did nothing but grow stronger and wiser from this point on. Hashirama was strong and his power was incredible. His legacy and cells continue to be something talked about to this day, but the thing is, his cells were used to empower Naruto, which in turn made him stronger. So he's sort of attributed to Naruto's rise beyond him, which is okay since Naruto is Hashirama's reincarnation, meaning in a way, Hashirama is still the strongest Hokage just under a different name. And number 1, Naruto Uzumaki, aka Hashirama 2.0. As the titular protagonist, it's only natural that he should grow stronger. He may have lost Kurama in battle, but that doesn't mean Naruto is helpless. At this point in time, he's stronger now than he was in the Six-Path Sage mode during the 4th Shinobi World War, and now he's wiser and sharper too. I could easily put Naruto above Hashirama. I suppose this is no surprise to you, and it shouldn't be. Naruto is just that strong. And that's the list. As I said, this is my opinion based on what I know. This list is objective, but it's also subjective. I had issues placing Kakashi so low on the totem pole due to his Kamui being able to end practically any fight with battlefield removal, but at this point there are characters fast enough to avoid this, and there was also the issue if anyone could escape the Kamui realm with a flying Raijin Jutsu. In the end, without the idea in place, Tsunade and everyone else just outclassed him flat, which was a bit sad, but to be honest, if Kakashi were here, he likely wouldn't care. And if he did, he would be given the thumbs up right now due to the accurately gauging his strength. Anyway, I want you to tell me what you think about the list and anything you might change. I would absolutely love to hear from you, and if you haven't already, subscribe and give the video a like to show your support for the channel. Peace out.